Hi, my name is Crystal Diaz, and welcome to Sing Together, Learn Together. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Yoga Lin, Lin Youjia, who is a Taiwanese singer. And before we begin, I wanted to thank Ben Pang, our YouTube subscriber, for giving us this suggestion. I often tell my students that vocal technique is not about developing the perfect instrument. Vocal technique gives you tools, and tools gives you, as a vocal performer, options. It gives you choices. We're talking specifically about non-classical singing. And this is important and relevant for non-classical singers because you want to be able to know your instrument well enough and to know the tools that you have at your disposal so that you can make different choices when it comes to performing your songs. And so when I look at live performances by singers who are professional, who have been doing this for many years, who have clearly spent time honing their craft and building up an audience and are very successful, I'm not looking at what did they do right and what did they do wrong? I'm looking more at how they are using their tools, how they are using the tools in their vocal instrument to create certain sound qualities and to create certain expressive elements in their singing. So if you are a fan of Yoga Lin, you will know that his songs are quite special. His song choices are very complementary to the way that his voice is. And when I say that the way that his voice is, I mean the texture of his voice. He is definitely not an aggressive singer. He's not a loud singer, but you can tell that he knows his voice really well, that he can navigate his way through his range really well. And because of his flexibility, his ability to go up and down in his range, it makes it easy for him to sing songs that do have that flowy up and down melodic structure. So in terms of how he implements his tools, I find that he is a perfect example of how somebody's high notes is determined, the quality of somebody's high notes is determined by how they are approaching the high notes, so how they are handling their lower notes in anticipation of the high notes. So when he sings in his lower register, so his chest voice, I noticed that he doesn't sing with full-blown chest voice. Obviously, he does have a lot of chest tone in his singing, but it's more on the lighter, gentler side. And I think that makes sense given the kinds of ballad and love songs that he tends to sing.
多希望有一个像你的人，但黄昏更坚强，无法相认。让我爱你，然后把我抛弃，我只要出发，不要目的。 走不完的长巷，原来也就那么长。
So even when he's singing in the lower register, in the lower range of his voice, he actually sounds a little higher because he's a little bit lighter in his chest voice. It'll be the equivalent in my voice if I were to sing like, I see trees of green versus I see trees of green, even though those are the same pitches. The key, I haven't changed the key, but because I've softened my chest voice, it sounds a little bit like there's a bit more higher tones in that quality. So for those who trained with me through the Online Vocal Academy or through the 10-Day Vocal Transformation Challenge, the tool he's using here is a lighter, softer core sound follow through. So he has the core sound, so he is connected, but he's softening around that. What I notice is that his ability to move up into his upper register, those higher notes, is much smoother because he's starting in this softer quality. He's able to move up very smoothly and then there's no break. You can hear that there isn't an obvious break.
从你把全世界路过，把全盛的我都活过，闭上眼看16岁的夕阳，美得像我们一样。我对你付出的青春，这么多年，换来了一句谢谢你的成全，成全了你的潇洒与冒险，成全了我的碧海蓝天。
I do notice that the high notes are not as resonant and they don't ring quite as strongly as he probably could. Now, I'm not saying that he can't do it, but it could be that that is just a choice that he made, or that's just his habit, that he likes his high notes to be a bit more subdued and a little bit more softer. Because he has a little bit less of that resonant ring in his high notes, what you'll notice is that when he ramps up his chest voice, when he gets a little bit more strong in the chest voice part, so he increases the chest tone quality in his lower register, that's when you notice the break. So in those examples, you can hear a distinctive flip or that break into a very obvious falsetto sound. I notice that he does that quite a lot in his singing, so I would imagine that he's incorporated that as a stylistic thing that he does. However, when I teach students and they'll often ask me, well, he flips into falsetto, should I flip into falsetto? I would say you can if you can do it with control. You're able to flip into the falsetto sound and you're still able to have enough control over your instrument to land on the right pitch. If you want to flip into falsetto at the end of the day, go ahead and do that. But let me give you all the tools first. Let's work on all the tools to make sure that you can make the right choices for your voice, so that if you do want to flip into falsetto just like Yoga Lin does, then you're going to be able to have enough awareness of your instrument to do it and execute it safely and consistently. So I just want to recap a little bit about what we talked about. When Yoga Lin is lighter in his chest voice, so he is connected when he's lighter in his chest voice, and he still has that core sound quality in there, so it's not empty sounding, it's not all breathy. He's able to move into his upper registers very smoothly, even though when he moves into his upper register, that those higher notes don't, in my opinion, they don't ring quite as strong. And the reason it doesn't ring quite as strong is because there is a little bit less of that core sound. So it is a little bit more breathier up there on that high note. But because he doesn't have that more connected sound in the high notes, it means that when he wants to belt and when he wants to be stronger on the lower notes and add a bit more weight and bulk onto the lower notes, like when he wants to add a bit more power, he's going to have a hard time connecting because he doesn't seem to habitually have the habit of maintaining that resonant quality in his upper register. So then there's this disconnected feeling. So when he ramps up his chest voice, he has no choice. It's not connected, right? So he has no choice but to flip up into the upper register. So I guess this begs the question then, well, how do you get the best of both worlds? How do you get that ability to ramp up, to get stronger, to add bulk and weight to your chest voice, to the lower register, and still be able to jump up high and stay connected and not flip into falsetto? So how do you mix strong and connected into your upper register? The ability to do that really is the core sound. The core sound is that feeling of connection. I call it a core sound because I like to envision it as a cord that strings through all of your notes. When you're singing from the low notes, ah, and going up to the high note, I'm not disconnecting. You don't hear a crack in there at all. And for me, how I trained to do that and how I train my students to do that is I have them to become very, very aware and teach them the tools to be able to have that that presence of that chord, that sound. That's what I call the core sound. And I'm sure other vocal coaches call it very similarly, or they'll have different words for it. But it's essentially connection. So when you have that core, that feeling of connection from the bottom to the top and from the top to the bottom, you're very familiar with it, and you have it present and you use it in your singing, then you actually can lean in anywhere. Lean in like you can press in and add bulk and weight anywhere, and you're going to still be able to maintain that connection. You're not going to crack and flip into a different sound quality or lose control. But if you choose not to have that, like for example, Yoga Lin, sometimes he doesn't have that in his high note. He deliberately disconnects into high notes. Then that's a different thing, right? That's just a different choice. Because I don't work with Yoga Lin, I can't say for sure that the reason he's disconnecting like that is because he can't mix it. I can't say that. It could very well be that he can mix and he just chooses to do it this way because he likes the way that it sounds. But that's okay because he, like I said before, is not what I would call an aggressive singer. He's not very aggressive on his vocal folds. So he's not very loud. He doesn't really ever yell. But if he's always singing heavy, he's always pushing his lower notes, he's always pushing his chest voice, and he's constantly flipping and aggressively cracking into falsetto, that with time can definitely be damaging. So in those cases, that choice would not be a very sustainable one, put it that way. So purely as a listener, I appreciate Yoga Lin's style. However, when I listen to his songs one after the other, I'm left feeling like there's part of him that is not really being expressed. So I feel like he's quite safe as an artist. He knows what he does well, and he does those things very, very well, and he demonstrates that in all of his songs. But I would love to see him maybe take that a step further, take a bit more chances to create more of that rougher edge quality into his singing every so often. So that is just entirely my own personal preference. I tend to like singers that are a little rough around the edges, and that's probably because I would wish to have more of that in my own voice. My voice does tend to be more clean, so that's probably why I gravitate, when I listen to other music, I gravitate to sounds that maybe I don't tend to do in my own style of singing, which is kind of interesting in and of itself, and we can have a conversation about that. So if you or someone you know is interested in learning about vocal technique and you want to learn those tools that I talked about, and you want to be able to apply it in your own voice and to see how far your singing can go, then you'll definitely want to check out my online vocal academy. So this is perfect for anyone who wants to really do something with their voice, who really wants to learn vocal technique, but perhaps you're not in a position, either time-wise or money-wise, to invest in one-on-one private lessons. This is a training experience that you're not going to want to miss. So click on the link to join our mailing list, and you'll be the first to be notified by me personally when we launch the online vocal academy. Plus, the first 10 who sign up get extra bonuses as well. So you definitely do not want to miss that. So click on the link, join us on the mailing list, and then we'll be in touch soon. See you guys on the next video.